welcome to the new series of the Research Sofa. I'm here today with Brendon Stubbs, a clinical academic physiotherapist who's going to talk to us about the work that he's been doing with people with mental health problems. So over to you, Brendon. So just tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are and what you do, please.
Great, thank you very much for the kind invitation to come and join you on the sofa. I'm really pleased to be here and to share a bit about the work that I've been doing. So briefly about me, so I'm a physiotherapist and I work in mental health services. So physiotherapists are really interested in primarily people's physical health and how we can help people healthy, happy and moving well, and help people with lots of long-term conditions, pain, and people having difficulty completing their activities of daily living. So we're really interested in people's physical health. And I've worked as a clinician helping people in mental health care services since 2003, and the primary focus of that has always been how can we improve the physical health, the activity levels and the well-being of people who use mental health services. More recently, over the last 5 or 10 years, I've been very interested from a research perspective. How can I use what I've been observing for a long period of time in clinical practice in research to try and understand the physical health issues that people who use mental health care services have, how we may be able to help reduce and prevent those issues, and how we may be able to develop programs of work that can help people make meaningful change in their health and well-being and lifestyle on a daily basis. So I've got the dual role of helping people clinically and then also research-wise try and match those two together.
And recently you've done some work in a Lancet Commission where you've published some information and guidelines around what work needs to be done and what areas we need to be thinking about. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, please?
Sure. Well, that was a really big piece of work which had a lot of input from many different authors, 42 authors from all over the world, including all types of different disciplines, people with living experience of using mental health services, carers. But it was really pioneered and spearheaded by Jo Firth, and lots of people had lots of input. And I think just a bit of preamble to that, sort of in my sort of 17 years or so working clinically in mental health care services, I've seen a real shift in terms of increased interest in people's physical health. When I first came onto the wards as a physiotherapist in 2003, all of my training was in physical health and how do we improve people's physical health care conditions. And at that time, people would say, why do we need a physiotherapist who's looking after physical health and mental health care services? What are we going to do with you? And fast forward now, where we are with the advances in science and data and research, we really understand that physical health is just as important, obviously, as our mental health, but very important for people who use mental health care services, where there is recognised an increased burden of lots of individual physical health care conditions and combinations of physical health care conditions. And understandably, this contributes to interrupting people's ability to live their lives to the full and can shorten people's life expectancy. So lots of research has gone into that. And if you try and understand all of that evidence base that's been published, particularly over the last 10 years, it's a huge task. So really as a recap and to set the next direction for how do we protect the physical health of people who use mental health care services, Jo Firth and colleagues led this huge Lancet Commission, which took over 2 years and several meetings and lots of iterations to say, where are we in terms of looking after people's physical health? What are some of the key risk factors? What are some of the most promising solutions? What are some of the most promising policy changes? And what are some of the next generation research and clinical ideas we should be taking forwards? So we amalgamated all of that within one document and had over 40 authors' input. So we had lots of different perspectives to try and sort of take stock of where we are and say what should the next steps be going forwards. And that's a brief synopsis of the Lancet Commission.
Yeah, it was an enormous piece of work that you undertook, and I know you've been involved in a lot of systematic reviews in the area. of physical health and physical activity. So going forwards, what is it that you think you personally would like to do next in this field, and where do you see your research going?
Sure. Well, I think there's a couple of areas which I'm really interested in. You mentioned there has been a lot of systematic reviews where people have pulled together individual long-term conditions in people with a severe mental ill health diagnosis. So just within that Lancet Commission, for instance, if you wanted to understand from a systematic review point long-term conditions in people who use mental health care services, we identified 99. Now, not many people have time to read 99 systematic reviews to understand where the gaps in the evidence are, so the Lancet Commission was really good to pull that together. But I think moving forwards, my own interests are, we know that having one condition is particularly troublesome for people, but what happens when we get 2 or 3 or 4 conditions when they're combined together, and what are those most common and problematic long-term physical health care conditions for people? So I'd really like to try and understand with research how these long-term conditions may congregate or collect together, which are the most problematic, and how can we ultimately prevent these from happening by taking a proactive approach to sort of active monitoring, promoting lifestyle, addressing sort of social determinants and everything going forward. So that would be one real key area of interest. And then another area of interest of mine really is looking at making lifestyle, particularly helping people move and enjoy movement, and particularly outdoors, as a really positive way to improve our physical and also our mental health. And can we use that early on to help people's physical health, help people's mental health, and prevent many of the downstream things which can occur if people become isolated and their mental health may not take a turn for the worse, and see this be implemented from the start as something which we do as standard practice in terms of helping people find movement that they enjoy, and giving people information and advice on healthy eating, and that would be a really good approach going forwards.
Thank you. So that's really interesting, the work that you're hoping to do and the direction you're hoping to change, and of great relevance to us at Closing the Gap. Is there anything you'd like to say as any final comments, final thoughts about the changes you've seen possibly the changes you've seen over the years of working in mental health services and promoting physical activity and the physical health?
Well, I think it's been really pleasing to see over sort of 17 years that there is, undoubtedly everybody recognises that the people that use mental health care services, particularly those with severe and enduring mental health care conditions, physical health is a huge issue. And we've got unanimous consensus that this needs to be addressed, early on, which is a huge shift. Because certainly when I first started working clinically, and I can only speak clinically in where I worked at that time, it wasn't on the agenda and the top of what we should be doing for people then. So that's been a huge shift. And also within people, helping people live healthier lifestyles. That was often seen as a nice luxury thing for people to have. And I think we've slowly seen through some of the evidence base and some of the good randomised controlled trials come through that when you do offer physical activity or nutrition-led interventions, you can get meaningful improvements in people's mental health symptoms with severe and enduring mental health conditions, and also improvements in people's physical health, such as weight status, preventing weight gain, and improving body mass index, particularly when you start early. So the research has really demonstrated the benefits of this, and I'd really like to see a shift for increased sort of funding going forward, so that this is offered right from the start for all people coming in.
Thank you, Brendon. It's been really great to have you talk on the sofa today. You've done a whole massive and wealth of work in this area. We're really pleased that you were able to come and talk to us today. So thanks very much.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you and goodbye.